The first key area to focus on that falls under soft skills is leadership skills. Your ability to lead a group of people and to make sure the desired results are achieved. Let's dive a little deeper into what exactly leadership encompasses. Well, it encompasses 5 or 6 different things. The first of which is to have a vision. If you have a vision, you will be giving a visionary leadership to the team. To be leading with a vision, you need to set a compelling vision for your team or your organization, inspiring everyone to work towards a common goal. Unfortunately, many leaders end up with no vision for the organization or for the group. And that's exactly the reason why they tend to sway in different directions with no clear-cut goal towards which they could march as one unit. That's an important failing of leadership. The second important thing is to be as decisive as possible at decision making. Make informed decisions promptly, and even in high pressure situations, you must be able to weigh the pros and cons and then take decisions that give a clear, decisive direction to the group. If the leader is indecisive or is wavering between two options and doesn't come up with quick and effective solutions for the group is likely to take you lightly and maybe even lose their direction, and the entire goal could simply fizzle out. The third important thing under leadership is to lead by example. Unfortunately, a lot of leaders are good at preaching but not so good at practicing what they preach. Great leaders are good at not only preaching but also practicing exactly what they preach. And this is what sets them apart from the other people. So when there are certain skills which your subordinates do not understand or haven't been exposed to previously, it's important as a leader you demonstrate and show that skill to them so that they could pick up the ropes from there and then continue their good work from there onwards. The fourth important soft skill is to be effective at communication. When I say effective, it's not just talking about something and forgetting about that. Well, when I say effective, it's important that you constantly understand how your messaging has been received by the receivers, and to double check with good feedback to understand whether what you intended to tell them has been understood exactly the same way you wanted them to understand. And if there's a discrepancy between what you want them to understand and how it's been understood eventually by the listeners, it's important you correct that and make sure all of the people are on the same page. Now that is effective communication. Otherwise, a lot of people commit this sin of assuming that they've communicated effectively to people, but unfortunately, the others haven't seen it that way. The next important thing under leadership is your ability to delegate to people tasks that are important for the group, but that you don't necessarily have to invest your time in, because that's something that the group members can handle pretty decently. Leadership is all about understanding which activities can be delegated to which of your team members so that you take off some pressure from yourself, which you could focus on more strategic work. So freeing up your time by delegating some work to members who can handle that work in your team is an extremely important leadership skill. The next one is conflict resolution. As teams grow and people come into new teams, conflicts are bound to happen. One of the important leadership skills is to ensure that you are resolving conflicts as and when they happen, and not really putting them off for too long until they become pestering sores which cannot be really handled or which are too late to handle. And the last one that a leader must demonstrate is mentorship. People under you actually are looking up to you for direction and for leadership. So it's important you mentor them and you are making them understand the process, and then be able to step into your role the moment you are ready to step maybe to the next role. So this is one skill, again, a lot of people ignore, thinking that it's not their job to mentor some people, but it is their job to mentor the people in your team, because you have to make sure that once you move on to the higher roles, there's somebody from within your team who can step into that role and then do a pretty decent job at that. So this is the top soft skill that we are talking about today among the 5, the leadership skills. Now let's move on to the second important soft skill, which is communication. Effective communication, we all know, is essential, and if there's one thing that's been talked about everywhere when it comes to leadership, it is communication. So let me just present 5 or 6 different aspects under communication that you as a leader must worry in order to be effective at whatever you're doing. First one, under communication skills, is to be an active listener. Well, this is the most important skill under communication, because a lot of people mistakenly assume that communication is all about listening, it is all about speaking. Yes, it indeed is about speaking, but it's not all about speaking. It's just as much about speaking as it is about listening. And so it's important you really pay a lot of attention to others when they speak. Ask for clarifying ideas, ask clarifying questions, just to make sure there's no area that is left untold or unexplained, which could probably lead to assumptions about something which you really want to avoid. And you need to show empathy to fully understand the different perspectives from which people are coming. When you don't understand a certain perspective from which one of your team members is coming, you're more likely to assume that he's wrong. And this is why empathetic listening and active listening is so vital to leadership. The next one is, if you're a leader, remember, you can't always talk. You have to have excellent writing skills as well. So express your complex ideas concisely and accurately in writing, ensuring your messages are easily understood by your team members. Everything that you tell them, if it's important, it has to be followed up by a written communication, so that there's something, in black and white that you can fall upon in case there's a misunderstanding or when people forget things. The third important communication competence that you have to work on under leadership is to be confident at public speaking. You could be a techie who's very savvy at a lot of things, but then if you cannot stand before a group of people, your team members, and then talk to them with a lot of confidence about what you're presenting to them, they will soon assume that you yourself have not bought into this idea. You haven't really purchased the idea yourself, because your presentation is not convincing to them. You're not making a compelling and a presentation with conviction. And that's more likely to be taken with less seriousness. But when you speak with a lot of conviction, because you believe in what you're telling them, and if you could talk with a lot of confidence as a public speaker, your group, your team is likely to buy into your ideas. The next one is nonverbal communication. Please understand the importance of nonverbal communication. You might have great, absolutely outstanding ideas, but that's only part of the story. You need to find ways by which you can sell these ideas to your team members before they could go back and then sell to somebody else. So developing this ability to talk persuasively, using your body language and facial expressions to align with your spoken words, is extremely important. In fact, I'm going to make another video in which I'll show you exactly how you can align your body language, your nonverbal communication with your verbal communication, so that whatever you're saying is more compelling to the listeners. And then adaptability in communication is extremely important, because you need to tailor your communication style to the audience, whether it is your team members, executives, clients, or other stakeholders. If you don't align your communication with their styles, and if you don't adapt your communication to suit their needs, your communication is likely to fail. The next one is conflict resolution. Like I said, navigate difficult conversations with diplomacy and empathy, seeking mutually beneficial solutions. Don't try to impose your views on your team members without actually first listening to them out completely, fully, with empathy. And then feedback is very important under communication. So provide constructive feedback to help others, because many a time your team members are probably assuming that they're doing a good job, and they're probably heading in a certain direction which might not be the direction that you want them to head in. So it's important you talk to them and then tell them that that's not what I wanted. Well, although you're doing a great job in that direction, but that's probably not exactly what I wanted from you, and I want you to course correct a little bit, and this is exactly what I want from you. That kind of constant feedback to your team members will help them to align with your direction, and that will produce fantastic results for you and your team members. Okay, the next important communication skill or soft skill that you really need to work on is your ability to problem solve. You should excel in analytical thinking, creativity, resourcefulness. This involves breaking down complex issues, thinking innovatively, and optimizing your resource utilization to find optimal solutions to problems. If I were to break this down, this competence into different sub-skills, I would break them into 5 different sub-skills. The first of which is to have analytical thinking. So what do you mean by analytical thinking? Well, it's simply breaking down a complex problem into manageable chunks, manageable components, systematically, and analyzing each aspect of it, and then telling your team about it. That's extremely useful if you really want to be a great leader. The second one is bringing in creativity and innovation. Encourage your team members to think out of the box and devise novel solutions that address issues effectively. If you're doing the same thing that everybody else in the industry is doing, that may not really be the best way of approaching leadership. Innovation and creative thinking constantly at every step of the process, and encouraging your team members to do it differently is the key. The next one is resourcefulness. Optimize available resources to solve problems efficiently. Resources, whether it's time or budget or personnel, are the constraints, the top constraints under which every leadership works. So unless you find ways to optimize these different resources, you end up probably spending too much, or probably really falling from the impression of the top management to which you are reporting. So optimized utilization of resources is a key factor that you need to focus on. And then critical thinking. Evaluate information and options critically. Question everything. If a certain thing is done in a certain way, just ask yourself why it's being done that way and how it can be done differently, and what are the benefits of doing it differently, what are the pros and cons of doing it differently, and the potential consequences of each decision. I think that kind of thinking must be infused into not only your decision-making process, but also into the decision-making styles of your team members. Thinking critically, questioning everything, and then taking things only after they've been sufficiently critiqued and inquired into. And then collaboration. Well, problem solving cannot be done effectively if you don't collaborate with people. Gather diverse perspectives, insights from problem solving. The next one is decision making. Execute your chosen solutions effectively. Decision implementation is extremely important, more important than decision making. Because even if you take simple decisions, it's important you have a strong machinery and a group of people who are charged up, who are very convinced about what you want to say, who are very convinced about your leadership and the directions you are taking, and in your ability to deliver. Once that is done, you can really, execute solutions effectively. And the last one is adaptability. Stay ahead by embracing continuous learning, flexibility, and resilience. Adapt to change, acquire new skills, maintain productivity during challenging times. Flexibility involves adapting quickly to changes in technology, changes in market conditions, or changes in project priorities. As they change, which they often do during a project management, you need to quickly adapt and change as well by being flexible. Resilience is to come back from adversity, recovering swiftly from setbacks, and making sure you may fall sometimes, but you will not stay there, but you will rise up, dust off, and you will run again until you reach your goals. Being open-minded, welcoming new ideas and perspectives and different approaches is a very characteristic of great leaders. Time management, prioritizing your tasks, managing your workloads effectively, especially when faced with shifting priorities. You need to shift with the changing priorities and quickly adapt and learn to manage your time to suit the requirements of the new situation. And then risk tolerance. Be willing to take calculated risks and explore new opportunities for growth. Unless you take risks, you cannot really be a different kind of a leader, and a leader who could be looked up to changing times. And finally, under this competence is change management. You need to quickly adapt and lead by adapting organizational changes and facilitating smooth transitions from the old ways to the new ways, and you must learn to take your team with you to adapt as a team and not just as an individual to changing times and changing plans and changing situations. The last soft skill competence that you need to develop if you really want to work and become a great leader is to improve your emotional intelligence. This encompasses 5 different things. The first one is empathy. It's simply to understand and consider the emotions and viewpoints of others, showing compassion and support, and making sure you understand the needs, the requirements, the feelings, and the priorities of your team members before you want them to buy into your priorities and your needs and requirements. That helps you to plan better and to get better results. Self-awareness. This is one thing which leaders actually lack. Self-awareness is simply about looking yourself in the mirror and asking yourself those difficult and hard questions about yourself. Recognizing and managing your own emotions and how these are affecting the way you are responding to challenges and requests from your team members. Maintaining your cool and composure under different kinds of pressure situations is self-awareness. The next one under this emotional intelligence competence is relationship building. Are you constantly building relationships with people? Are you creating and nurturing positive working relationships with colleagues, clients, and other stakeholders? That's a question which you must be able to answer in the affirmative if you really want to be a great leader. Conflict resolution, as we said, is extremely important. Teams are bound to come up with conflicts, and as in when they do, you have to come up with resolutions, and this is possible only if you have tremendous emotional intelligence to come up with creative and innovative solutions. And then adaptability, adjusting to the emotional responses of different situations and maintaining a balanced demeanor. Whether it's tough times or easy times, you have to maintain a balanced demeanor and make sure you are the same and you're not ruffled easily by changing circumstances or setbacks or obstacles, that you can stand up to obstacles and changing circumstances, and you can provide leadership that your team can be proud of. And finally, leadership with emotional intelligence, inspiring and motivating others while fostering a positive work culture. So these are the competencies that are crucial for experienced professionals. Combining visionary leadership with effective communication, problem solving, adaptability, and emotional intelligence to navigate your career successfully. Thank you very much for listening to me till here. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. Hit the like button in case you like this presentation. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.